most interest to me, what I've learned, is that his father does not believe, his parents don't believe that their son committed this crime. I was like, huh? Excuse me? That's a far cry from what the media has been telling us. Remember, the media presented this amazing story.
Joe Rogan and Candace Owens are both saying loud and clear, something doesn't add up about Charlie Kirk's case. And once you hear what they've uncovered, you'll understand why the internet is losing its mind over this story. Joe and Candace aren't just tossing opinions around, they're connecting dots the mainstream won't touch. Their findings are shocking, and it's no wonder people everywhere are starting to question everything. In this breakdown, you'll hear exactly what Joe Rogan said about all those weird details that just don't line up. You'll also hear Candace Owens' explosive claims from her own digging. And when you see the video clips coming up later, you'll realize why both of them believe the official story has major holes. We're talking about wild stuff, impossible weapons that don't match the evidence, decoy suspects who somehow keep popping up at different national tragedies, and text messages that read like bad scripts. And let's not forget the widow, smiling, posting, and living like nothing happened. Fans are calling it cold and unreal. This whole thing screams suspicious, and now people are finally demanding real answers. But before we dive into the messy details, let's get the basics straight. Charlie Kirk wasn't just any public figure. He was the powerhouse behind Turning Point USA.
The father realized his son was guilty, so it goes, right? And then he phoned over a friend to help him convince his son to turn himself in, because this guy, you know, this mysterious guy was a friend and just had a connection with Tyler. And eventually they said, you got to do the right thing here. We know this is you. That was the vibe. Certainly, that's what the media was putting down for us to pick up.
A rising star in conservative politics. At just 31 years old, he built an empire that reached millions. Yet, everything came crashing down on September 10th, 2025, during what should have been a routine student Q&A at Utah Valley University, when out of nowhere, shots rang out, and Charlie Kirk's life was cut short on stage. Within just 33 hours, the authorities claimed they had it all figured out. They arrested a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson, saying he was the one who did it. Case closed, no questions asked. But hold up, that's exactly where things start to look real suspicious. Candace Owens didn't buy it for a second, so she launched her own investigation. And what she found was deeply unsettling. According to Candace, Charlie Kirk himself warned 3 people the day before his death that something was coming. Not weeks before, not months before, literally the day before. He told them, I think they're going to kill me. Let that sink in. Less than 24 hours before he was gone, he was already scared for his life. Joe Rogan called the official version bizarre, and he wasn't exaggerating. He pointed out how too many things don't make sense. The weapon that doesn't match the wounds.
Here's the other thing. They said that he took it apart and then put it back together again. Shut the fuck up. Do you know how much time it would take to do that if you were highly skilled?
To disassemble a gun.
To disassemble a rifle so that you can get it in a backpack. And by the way, not gonna fit. Not gonna fit.
In a backpack.
And then somehow or another reconnects it once he gets off the roof? What?
A timeline that feels impossible, and suspects who seem like they were pulled out of thin air. Joe said it straight. None of this adds up. And honestly, he's right. Now here's where it gets even colder. Candace Owens dropped a revelation that should have been front-page news, but somehow, the media stayed silent. She said 2 of the 3 people Charlie warned have written proof, actual text messages, showing that Charlie knew something was about to happen. Candace said, 3 people told me off the record, and 2 of them have written communication from Charlie himself. The very day before he died, he told them, I think they're going to kill me. Just imagine that. Charlie literally predicted his own death, and yet nobody in power seems to care. No federal follow-up, no press conference, no transparency, nothing. Candace said she's begging those 3 witnesses to come forward publicly, but so far, silence. And that's not just suspicious, that's alarming. And just when you think it can't get weirder, it does. Candace revealed that on the same day Charlie was killed, a military plane flew from Texas straight to Utah, landing just hours before the shooting. Coincidence? Maybe. But in this story, coincidences don't come cheap. That military plane didn't just fly by. It arrived right around the time Charlie was shot. And get this.
this story is horseshit. Like none of these things make any sense to me. Like you're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like, that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet.
Radar shows it dipped unusually low over the exact area of the incident, with the tail number N1098L. Why on earth would a military aircraft be flying that low in the middle of a civilian event? What was it even doing there? Candace Owens dug into the records and found that this same plane had previously been used by the U.S. military, registered under Lacey Aviation, LLC. But now, nobody's saying who's contracting it. That silence alone speaks volumes. Candace has been saying from day one that this wasn't some random, isolated act. She's convinced this was part of a coordinated military-style operation. As she put it, the more you peel back the onion, the clearer it gets. This was a military operation. And honestly, the deeper you look, the harder it is to argue with that. Because if this really was just a lone 22-year-old, why was there a military aircraft circling above the scene right when the shots were fired? That doesn't make sense for a so-called random shooting, does it? Candace even called out the FBI director directly. Hey, Kash Patel, most transparent ever, except when it comes to Epstein. What's up with this plane? She said it plain. Patel definitely knows who contracted that flight, but he's not saying a word. No answers, just total silence. And when powerful people refuse to answer simple questions, it usually means one thing. They're hiding something. But that's not all, because now, Joe Rogan's findings take things to a whole new level. When Joe heard the official story about the weapons supposedly used in the shooting, he couldn't help but call it ridiculous. According to investigators, Tyler Robinson, this 22-year-old kid,
the very day before Charlie Kirk died, he expressed that he thought he was going to be killed. He told these people, I think they're going to kill me, okay? He did not express that to me, so I am telling you this based off the testimony of 3 people. And I am saying this because I hope that these people who I think are good will be inspired to come forward with that.
Supposedly used his grandfather's World War I rifle. Yeah, an antique gun over 100 years old with no serial number. Already sketchy, right? But it gets even crazier. Officials claim Tyler somehow took that old rifle apart, packed all the separate pieces into a backpack, climbed onto a rooftop, and then magically reassembled the whole weapon up there before firing the shot. Joe Rogan flat out laughed at the claim, saying, they said he took it apart and put it back together again? Shut the up. Do you know how much time that would take? Even if you were highly skilled, it's wild. Even experts are saying that process would take serious tools and precision. So how could a 22-year-old with no training pull that off under pressure, in the dark, and hit his target perfectly? It just doesn't add up. And Joe was dead on. That rifle story makes no sense whatsoever. Have you ever actually seen a World War I rifle? Those things are massive, long, heavy, built like a tank. There's no way you're just breaking one down and slipping it into a backpack like it's a Lego set. Even if someone somehow managed to cram the pieces in, how long would it take to put it all back together? On a rooftop, in public, under pressure.
Again, those conversations I had were off record. I honor that. If I say it's off record, it stays off record. But I'm hoping that watching what I am doing and feeling the energy that is rising across the world for people who want to know what the heck happened on 9/10, that, you know, they will be brave and they will say, yeah, Charlie did the day before he died think that he was going to be killed, and maybe tell us, who is they? Well, for once and for all, who is they? Who is the they that he thought were going to kill him?
You'd need tools, time, and serious military training to pull that off. Not to mention steady hands and focus, something no random 22-year-old could pull off in a real situation like that. Joe Rogan didn't hold back when he heard the story. He said it straight. This story is horse shit. None of these things make any sense to me. And honestly, he's right. Even a basic look at the weapon and the setup completely destroys the official version. It's like the story was written by someone who's never even held a rifle before. But things only get crazier from here, because now we need to talk about the decoy guy. This part, absolutely insane. Right after the shooting, witnesses say there was an older man at the scene who started shouting, "I did it! I did it!" And then, out of nowhere, he took his pants off. Yeah, seriously, full chaos. People thought he was either in shock or trying to distract attention. But when Joe Rogan and his team looked deeper into who this man was, that's when it got straight up bizarre. This same man has allegedly been spotted at multiple other tragedies: 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombing, even other incidents involving fake bomb threats. Joe couldn't believe it and asked the question everyone's thinking: how are you at all these different things? What are the odds?
I don't know. It's one thing if your husband dies, period. It's another thing if your husband dies at age 31, unexpectedly. It's another thing if your 31-year-old husband unexpectedly dies because he gets publicly executed with blood gushing out in front of thousands of people screaming and running away. That's like something that's...
He joked that if someone ran those odds through an AI system, it would probably say 0. Because seriously, what are the chances one person just happens to be at every major national tragedy for the last 2 decades? So what's the deal here? Is he just the unluckiest man alive, or is something else going on? Joe put it bluntly: maybe the guy's professionally insane, or maybe he's planted there to create chaos and throw off the public. Because right after the Charlie Kirk shooting, that same decoy guy got arrested, but not for anything related to the case. Nope, he was suddenly hit with child-related charges, and just like that, it became legally impossible for anyone to interview him or get his side of the story. Convenient, right? Too convenient, because once those charges dropped, every potential question about what he saw or what he might have been doing there got buried. Joe Rogan said what everyone's thinking. Does that sound like coincidence to you? It definitely doesn't to him, and it doesn't to anyone paying attention either. And now comes another shocking layer: Tyler Robinson's family. Candace Owens actually spoke to them directly, and what they told her completely contradicts the media's version. According to the news, Tyler's father supposedly realized his son was guilty and turned him in, a classic good dad does the right thing narrative. But Candace says that's not the truth. She spoke to people close to the family, and they claim Tyler's parents never believed he was guilty at all. They told her point blank, their son didn't do it. And according to Candace, that changes everything. Because if the family's denying it, then the entire story we've been fed by the media might be built on lies. Candace teased what she found next, saying, "of most interest to me." And what comes after that line is what left everyone's jaws on the floor. Candace Owens dropped another shocking twist, and this one completely flips the story upside down. What she learned is that Tyler Robinson's own father doesn't believe his son committed this crime. In fact, nobody in the family does. That's huge, because if the parents don't believe it, who actually turned Tyler in? According to Candace, it wasn't his dad at all. It was a family friend, someone who used to be a police detective, who made the call. This ex-cop supposedly told the family that Tyler had been identified as the shooter and warned that if Tyler didn't surrender peacefully, SWAT would storm the house. Can you imagine hearing that about your own kid out of nowhere? Tyler was reportedly shocked and confused, swearing up and down that he didn't kill Charlie Kirk. And here's the kicker. Candace's sources claim that Tyler had never even stepped foot on the Utah Valley University campus. He wasn't a student there. He'd been accepted to Utah State University, a completely different school. So how does that make sense? How could a 22-year-old who's never even visited UVU suddenly know the exact rooftop layout, navigate multiple buildings, and make a perfect long-distance shot like a trained sniper? The official story gives no explanation for that. None. There's one photo floating around that shows Tyler near the area that day, supposedly grabbing something at Dairy Queen. But Candace says even that raises more questions than it answers. Sure, maybe that's how they linked him to the scene, but what was he doing there if he didn't go to that school? Too many weird details, not enough real answers. But now, we've got to talk about something uncomfortable. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica. Nobody wants to accuse a grieving spouse. It feels wrong, it feels cruel. But the internet can't ignore the strange behavior that's followed since Charlie's passing. Nick Fuentes was one of the first to call it out. And honestly, he just said what a lot of people have been thinking, but were too scared to say. Erica reportedly took control of Turning Point USA just 72 hours, 3 days, after Charlie was killed. Not weeks later, not after the funeral, just 3 days. She was already filming content, smiling on camera, giving speeches, acting like business as usual. Nick Fuentes said it straight. It's one thing if your husband dies. It's another thing if your 31-year-old husband gets publicly executed, with blood gushing out, in front of thousands of screaming people, and you're back on camera days later. And honestly, that hit a nerve, because he's not wrong. If your husband gets shot in front of a live audience, wouldn't you need time to even breathe again? To grieve? To process? Nick said what everyone else was whispering. It's super inappropriate. It's weird. Something is off here, and I don't like it. Of course, people grieve differently, and maybe Erica was trying to stay strong or distract herself with work. But when you mix in money suddenly disappearing from Turning Point's accounts and the fact that Charlie was planning a major audit of the organization right before he died, it stops looking like bad timing and starts looking like a pattern. That's why Candace and others are pushing harder for answers. Because if Charlie knew something, if that audit was about to expose something bigger, then the people who benefited most from his silence might not be strangers at all. Something about this whole situation doesn't sit right, and the deeper it goes, the darker it gets. Now let's talk about the part that might be the real key to everything, the money. Because when you follow the money, the truth usually isn't far behind. Just 1 week before Charlie Kirk was killed, he publicly announced a massive internal audit at Turning Point USA. He said millions of dollars were missing. Yes, millions. And he was determined to track down where it went and who was behind it. Then, exactly 7 days later, he was dead. You don't need to be a detective to see the problem there. Candace Owens said this audit could have exposed something much bigger than anyone expected, and that might be what cost Charlie his life. But then she shared something even more eerie, something deeply personal. She revealed that she had a vivid dream after Charlie's death, where he came to her and said he had been betrayed. Now, whether or not you believe in dreams doesn't matter. Candace does, and she swore this one felt real, like a message meant to be heard. She said, "I don't know who exactly it is that betrayed him, but I felt in the dream that it's soon going to be revealed. It's inevitable. Nothing and no one will stop the truth from coming out." Then she said something that gave everyone chills, that when the truth surfaces, it will have international consequences. Think about that. International. That's not just political gossip or workplace drama. That's global. So what could Charlie have uncovered that would have caused shockwaves across borders? And more importantly, why aren't the people closest to him fighting for answers? Candace pointed out that it's only people like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and herself who are digging into this. Meanwhile, the folks who work side by side with Charlie every single day, complete silence. No public statements, no push for transparency, nothing. And Candace said that silence alone feels very suspicious. She asked, why hasn't anyone made a move to vindicate what I've been saying about what he was going through? Because seriously, if your friend, your leader, or your colleague dies under such bizarre circumstances, wouldn't you want justice? Wouldn't you demand answers? Now, let's rewind for a second. Back to when this whole tragedy first hit the world. Joe Rogan was literally recording his podcast live when the news broke that Charlie had been shot. You can actually hear the shock in his voice as he reads it out loud, stunned and speechless. This just happened. We just found out that Charlie Kirk got shot. That moment hit hard. It wasn't just another headline. It was real, raw, and terrifying. And ever since that day, people like Joe and Candace haven't stopped asking the same question that's haunting millions. Who really betrayed Charlie Kirk, and why? Joe Rogan's reaction when the news broke was pure disbelief. You could hear it in his voice. He was scrolling live, refreshing Twitter, trying to piece together what had just happened in real time. His words hit heavy. It doesn't seem real. It feels surreal. It's gonna take a long time before we even process this as something that really happened. That moment said it all. No one expected this. Joe also pointed out how divided things have gotten in America, saying that some people would actually celebrate Charlie's death just because of his political stance. No one deserves this, Joe said. Not for having different opinions, not for saying what they believe. Then he added, but I know people are gonna celebrate it because this is a messed up time. And he was right. Sadly, that's exactly what happened. Some people really did celebrate online, posting memes and comments like it was some kind of win, and that's beyond disturbing. But this story is bigger than one tragedy. It matters because when major voices like Joe Rogan and Candace Owens both start publicly questioning an official narrative, that's not just gossip. That's a signal something isn't right. When timelines don't line up, when witnesses vanish, and when details make no sense, that's when citizens in a free society have the duty to ask for answers. That's not conspiracy, that's common sense. Candace Owens said she's been getting attacked for not keeping quiet, for simply asking hard questions. Critics are telling her to shut up and let the family grieve. But she fired back with one of the realest responses yet. They want us to believe the best way to honor Charlie is to stay silent. That's the exact opposite of what he stood for. Charlie literally spent his life asking questions, speaking truth, and challenging narratives. She's right. The best way to honor Charlie Kirk isn't by staying quiet. It's by doing what he did every single day, asking what really happened and not settling for half answers. And Joe Rogan added another layer that really hits home. He said, if someone wanted the public to lose faith completely, they'd flood the internet with so much confusion, so many weird, conflicting details that nobody would ever know what's real anymore. Maybe that's the point, Joe said. Maybe they're throwing in all this nonsense to confuse everyone until the truth gets buried under chaos. And honestly, doesn't that feel like what's happening right now? Let's lay it all out one last time. Joe Rogan and Candace Owens have both raised serious, detailed questions that still haven't been answered. We've got a weapons story that's flat out unbelievable. We've got a decoy suspect who's mysteriously shown up at multiple national tragedies. We've got Charlie warning 3 people the day before he died that he thought they were coming for him. We've got a military plane circling the area at the same time as the shooting. We've got a widow who took over Turning Point USA within 72 hours. And we've got millions of dollars missing from the organization Charlie was preparing to audit. So, was this really just one confused 22-year-old acting alone? Or are we staring at something much bigger? Something that goes way beyond what we're being told? We might not have every answer right now, but one thing's clear. The official story has more holes than Swiss cheese. And when people like Joe Rogan and Candace Owens, 2 of the most outspoken voices in media, both say something doesn't add up, maybe it's time the rest of us start paying closer attention too. What do you think? Do all these inconsistencies make you suspicious? Or do you believe the official version? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I genuinely want to hear what you think about this. And if you want to stay updated as more pieces of this story come out, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing, because something tells me this story is far from over. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.